All right, boys. I'm gonna be picking Madden Bowl today, and just wanted to do this for fun. I'm really excited about Madden Bowl. I just think it's a great event, and I think they're gonna make it really cool this year. So I wanted to give you my picks for Madden Bowl. I think we're about a week out, and these are the players that I think are gonna win. Or these are I'm gonna pick all the games, and then I'm gonna explain like why these are my picks, and kind of just give you my thoughts on the game. So first round matchups, everything's set up. Big LCQ win coming from SEO Drip. He won LCQ, got that 14th slot. Big Tay won the tiebreaker versus Kobo, and so he is going to now be in that 13th seed. And then really the other 12 was pretty set. So I'm gonna pick the first round, and then we're gonna talk about the second round matchups. So the first round matchups, you have Wesley versus Astro. Two really good offensive players. Wesley, probably the best Madden player of all time that does not have a belt because Cleff actually got his first belt this year. I Astro is, in my personal opinion, I think Astro is one of the top five offensive players every single year, maybe all time top five offensive player. I really like watching him play. I think Wesley though is right there on both sides. I think Wesley's switch stick is so good. The way that he plays defense in this game, I think Wesley, his style of play really fits Madden 25. That idea of like I'm gonna be, send four, send five maybe, and I'm gonna switch stick all over the field. And Astro, we saw him play fancy and him really struggle against a good switch stick. But this was months ago. This was back in, I want to say October, September timeframe, and we're now in January. So this was 60 to 120 days ago, where we really saw Astro. And I don't know what book he's in. I'm assuming Astro is still in Falcons, but I'm not sure. And I know that Wesley has been really right there all year long and has really consistently shown pretty good switch stick. That is why I'm going to pick Wesley in that first round matchup. I'm going to have Wesley winning that matchup. All right, so I'm just going to draw the name here and just see if we can just do this. So I'm just going to put Wesley wins that matchup. Okay, so that's going to be Wesley versus Fancy in round two. Now, Lambo versus Big Tay. I'm going to come back to that one. I still don't for sure have my mind made up about this game, and I'm going to explain this matchup a little bit. But this is like I'm going to star like the best matchups. I think this is probably a top level matchup. This one is a really good matchup as well. Cleff and TJ. I just feel like Clef is coming off of a really, really big win for his MCS career. He's coming off his first belt in the Zero Chill tournament. He's consistently shown improvement over the year. I feel like TJ has consistently declined throughout the year. Just watching the games, I feel like TJ was really, really good, but really hasn't. I can't even remember. I think he made a Final Four earlier in the year. TJ was obviously really good last year and was consistent, but once he got the thing that really happened to TJ in Madden Bowl last year, and I think what's going to happen to him again this year is in Madden Bowl. I think he actually performed a little better last year, but in general, I think TJ is going to lose this game, and the reason why is simply because I think Cleff is ascending in the MCS, and I think TJ, while has stayed consistent the last two Madden seasons and is one of the better players in the game, he hasn't really had as good of a year this year as he did last year, and he's also just seems like I don't know. I just feel like Clef's the better player at this point in the year. I feel like Clef's the better player, so I'm gonna go Clef here, which is gonna put him into this matchup here. Okay, let's get over here to this side. I feel like this side's a little easier to pick for me. Abram, SEO Drip, you got to go Abram. Abram has really the last 2 years just been a really, really big name, and I think you got to go Abram. I think he I think he could be very easily a top five offensive, top five defensive player. He plays the game really well. He's really good. And I just think SO Drip be a real upset if you upset Abram in that matchup. And I don't think Drini and Henry, like while they were really good and they were the finals in the LCQ, I think in general, Abram is really good at this specific game as well because of just how good Abram is offensively. I think it's going to be very difficult to stop him. And I also think Abram has good enough defense, good enough switch stick. SEO Drip, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think SEO Drip's going to give Abram anything he hasn't seen. Whereas I think if you put Henry or Drini in that spot, I think they have a better shot at upsetting them. Uh, so I gotta go Abram. I just can't see a way SEO Drip wins that game. I think Abram is too good. I think Abram's been too consistent. And really, if you look at it, I can't remember who Abram lost to last Madden Bowl. I can't remember who it was. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I feel really good about that pick. I feel like that's pretty a pretty clear cut. Abram's going to win that game. Um, Kiv 88. This one is hard to pick. This one's kind of hard to pick because Kiv is, from what I know, I think 88 is going to be. I actually might pick this based off of scheme. 88 is probably going to be in Lions. I think he might be in something else, but I want to say he's in Lions. I'm pretty sure Kiv is going to be in Eagles, and I've seen Kiv play a lot more recently than I've seen 88 play, and that's partially why I'm going to take Kiv. Kiv was right there with Cleff, blow for blow in that masterclass Madden game in the Zero Chill Challenge. And I just feel like Kiv is going to be the better player, even though he's seated lower. And so I got to go Kiv here. Couple reasons. Number one, experience goes to Kiv. Okay. Experience goes to Kiv. I think scheme goes to Kiv. I think Eagles is better than Lions if 88's in Lions, which I would assume he is. I think Eagles is a better playbook. And I think, yeah, I feel like 88 is it's gonna be I think it'll be a close game, but I think Kiv's experience will edge him out and make him victorious. But I'm not sure. Right? Obviously, I haven't seen him play. I haven't seen problem is I haven't seen 88 play in a while. I feel like I've seen Kiv more recently, not just with Zero Chill, but with 1v1 games and things like that he streams. I feel like I've been able to watch him a little bit more, and I just feel like Kiv is better. Uh, but it's hard. This is what's fun about Madden Bowl is it's hard to pick these games. These are all going to be dogfights. I don't think 88 gets flooded, but I think Kiv wins. I think I think a couple things. I think 88 is susceptible to throwing picks against switch stick, but I'm not. Not like he's not the worst offensive player at the tournament. He's not the best offensive player at the tournament. So I think there's that. Whereas like, I'm trying to think of someone off the top of my head. Like, I'd be surprised if I'd be surprised if like John Weiss, right? I don't know. It's hard to say that because John will throw anything. Like Wesley, I think will be pretty clean offensively. I think Wesley's gonna be hard to stop. I think Abram's gonna be hard to stop. I think Cleff's gonna be hard to stop. I think Kiv's gonna be hard to stop. Then you get to an 88 and you're like, I can see him getting picked. I can see a switch stick lurk, right? And the same thing I would say for a lot of other people like Lambo. I can see Lambo getting stopped. Um, Big Tay, which does kind of bring that game up, and we'll talk about that game a little bit. So Lambo did really really well to win his first belt, I believe. I'm trying to think what actual tournament it was, but it was I want to say it was like the Harvest one or I don't know for sure what the actual tournament was called, but he's so your most recent one is Cleff, then you have Lambo, and then Fancy won twice, and then John won the first belt, which is really interesting that John is the 2 seed. I think that's interesting. So that being said, Lambo's going to probably be in the Eagles, which I think is an advantage to him. However, I think U-Trips has been consistently ascending all year. It has good spacing. It has a lot of quick snap plays that you can hike the ball quickly. Big Tay, I think, has gotten better as the year has gone on. He's been in the same offense all the way through. He beat Skimbo with this. Big Tay also just coming off a win against Kobo, which I think Kobo is really good. Kobo could have easily been in Madden Bowl. They were in a winning get in game. That for those reasons, I just feel like my gut tells me Big Tay is the one that wins here. I think Big Tay beats Lambo. I think he upsets him. And I think it's because Lambo can sometimes, which this year's game, Lambo just throws some stuff. Sometimes you're like, what was that? Like, why did you throw that? So but it's hard. It's a hard. That was a hard. I think this is like a super. I think this is like a one. I don't know. I just think this one's gonna be like a back and forth game, and I think Big Tay is gonna ultimately something's gonna happen in the game where Big Tay is gonna kind of not necessarily get gifted the game, but I think Lambo is gonna make some kind of mistake that opens the door for Big Tay, and that's why I think he wins. Big Tay, if you watch him play, I'm trying to remember the matchup he had after he beat Skimbo. Oh, it was Fancy. Yeah. So if you watch that game against Fancy, I don't I don't feel like Big Tay actually played that bad. It was just we hadn't seen someone when Fancy won that belt. It was we hadn't seen someone with that good of a switch stick, and the things Fancy was doing really just was significantly different than what everybody else was doing. So for those reasons, I think Big Tay wins that game and sets up a matchup between him and Cleff. Um, Again, I have Kiv here, and then Dez and David T. This one, um, this one is a really interesting matchup because Dez Dez is really good. Dez is really good. David T is really good. I think David T is a lot better at the end of the year than he is in the beginning of the year. As the year goes on, I think David T gets better. Last year David T would have been a really interesting person to have in the Madden Bowl because he was doing some stuff last. He was really last year offensively. I think David T was probably a top five. I don't know if top, but he was up there. He was a really good offensive player last year. He was doing some stuff on defense that nobody was really doing at the time. That being said, Dez is Dez, and so this one I think is probably the best matchup of the first round. I think this one's going to be the closest game in my opinion. I think Abram's going to win. I think Kiv's going to win. Cleff's going to handle him. I think, and then we've got Wesley Astro. That one could be a tight matchup. I think Astro just throws some stuff, and I feel like every single tournament I've seen Astro play, with the exception of Madden 22, Madden Bowl, but Madden 23, Madden 24, it's always been the same thing. Where Astro is high-powered player that will make. He's such a gunslinger that he'll just make some throws. Kind of like Lambo to a degree, but more so Astro. Astro's more on the gunslinger side, and also just more on the. I don't know if arrogance the right word, but it's like he makes some arrogant throws or some. I don't know if that's the right word, but he makes some throws that are like risky, and so I think that against a Wesley is gonna bite him. So that's why I think Wesley wins that game. Then we go to Des and David T, and I just don't know about that game because I the game suits both of them, and I think that's what's hard about picking this game. Both of them, David T. A lot of people don't know this, but I think David T. has a really good his switch stick is really good defensively, so I think that's going to help him a lot. If you didn't know, Abram and David T. are like really, similar players, lab a lot together, that kind of thing. Daz is just, gosh, it's hard. It's a hard game to pick. Also, I got a little, I'm a big fan of David T myself, so a little bit of heartstrings in here. I do think David T wins the game. I really do. I think David has been. We haven't seen a lot from David, really. Like, if you think about it, uh, really didn't see him stream much this year. Only saw him really stream the tournaments. If you look at the games that David T lost, I think he was, you know, he still was good. I think, and now that he's an Eagle, I'm pretty sure he'll be an Eagles. I don't know for sure, but I think he'll be an Eagles. Made a final against Lambo, had a really good chance at winning that game. Honestly, I just feel like his offense was at the, I don't know, I just feel like it wasn't, it was kind of limited to a degree because he was so dependent on the RPO, but it was a good RPO, but you know what I mean. So I think David T wins this game. That being said, I think this one's going to be a crazy game. This is probably my favorite game of the first round. I didn't realize that they were the matchup there. Okay, let's move on to second round and try to move a little quicker, but there's a lot to talk about. Fancy versus Wesley. These are gonna all probably be stars here. Oh, this one's hard to pick. Big Tay versus Cleff because I feel like Cleff and Skimbo kind of similar, just in terms of style. I think they quick hike a lot, and we saw Skimbo versus Big Tay, and they both kind of play similar in terms of like they're gonna master a couple of things, and they're gonna kind of make they're gonna master you're not gonna see a ton of variety from Clef. You're gonna see 5, 7 plays. You're gonna see 3, 5 coverage shots, something like that. Big Tay put up 40 on Skimbo, so that's what makes me wonder. That's what makes me wonder there. But I gotta give it edge to Clef. I just think Clef's a better player, but I gotta give the edge to Clef. I think Clef wins this one. Abram versus Kiv is a hard one to pick. Abram versus Kiv is a really hard one to pick because Kiv is really good in shootouts. Like, I predict that being a shootout game, and I think Kiv does really well in shootout games. Um, but I just like Abram's game a lot. I think he does a good job. That's a hard one to pick. I really think gosh, I think Kiv wins that one. I think it's a crazy game, and I think Kiv wins. Kiv finds a way to win crazy games more than he loses them. I give that one to Kiv. This is probably the best matchup of the second round. Well, this one's up. This one's up there too. There's some good matchups coming. John Beast versus David T. That one's a hard one to pick. If I believe that David T beats Dez. John Beast versus David T. Everything in me wants to pick David T. Kind of think John is. The thing about John is that John has really performed well in the beginning of the year, and then as the game goes on, I feel like John gets worse. If you look at Madden 24, Madden Bolt was basically that. The game, and again, like he was right there head to head with Wesley, but if you look at the game, the thing that concerns me about John is I just think John is not a very like. I don't make sure I word this right. Like he's much better on offense than he is on defense. And how does that play against a David T? Not sure. I think it's going to be a crazy game. I think David T versus John's a crazy game. John can make some plays though. That's just like wow plays, like something you wouldn't expect, which I think is favors him a little bit in the David T matchup because David T is more of a to me, David T is a very systematic player, whereas John is a very freestyle player. So David T is going to have, his stuff labbed up, whereas John's just going to do something crazy. Not that John doesn't lab, but just that I think John is really good in a freestyle setting where he's freestyling, autoing around. putting combos on the field that he might have never ran before, but he's just going to find a way. This kind of I lean towards picking John in this game, but there's also that part of me that's like John Beast gets worse throughout the year, and I think because of that, I think David T gets better throughout the year, and that's why I'm picking him. Obviously, and also because I'm a big fan of him and I want him to win, but I think he has a legitimate shot at this. I think he beats Dez. I think he can beat Dez. I think he can beat John. I'm not sure about Kiv. That's going to be a question mark we're going to get to when we get to our final four picks. Fancy versus Wesley to me is also the hardest pick of this round. The reason why this is such a hard pick is because Fancy was so dominant, and then in the zero chill event he looked really bad. Um, like against Cleff, he looked really bad against Cleff. Cleff kind of popped him. I mean, it wasn't even close, and that's that's why this one's hard to pick for me because Wesley gets better throughout the year. Wesley's every Madden 23 Madden Bowl made a decent run. I want to did he make it? I can't remember. Was Madden 23 was Dez when Dez beat Henry, I believe, in the final. So I can't remember if where Wesley was at. I know Madden 24 obviously Wesley made a crazy run. Um that's why I think this is a hard game to pick. Fancy just gosh, but Fancy also was it Madden 23 or was Madden 23 semifinal? Yeah, Madden 23 semifinal, Madden Bowl, Madden 23 semifinal. That's why it's so hard to pick because Fancy has really done well in Madden Bowls, but so is Wesley, and they're both very similar, and that's why it's hard to pick, and that's why I think they're both in Eagles. I think they're both in Eagles. I think they're both in one for six or dollar. They're very similar. It's a mirror match. Ultimately, I gotta pick. Oh, I gotta pick Wesley, but I don't want to. this is this is the best matchup. This one right here is definitely is going to be a really good matchup, and I gotta pick Wesley because I think this is Wesley's time. I think this is Wesley's kind of game. I think it's his time. I think Fancy has gotten worse. I think he peaked in September, October. I don't know that Fancy's gotten better. I've watched Fancy play some 1v1 games. That makes me kind of like, you know? So it's hard to pick this one. I actually, honestly, guys, I believe that these guys right here are probably the two best players. Maybe Abram, but I think the best two players are Wesley and Fancy. Cleff is like Cleff looked good in the zero chill tournament, but he looked good at points. He looked really good at points, and then he looked like kind of classic Cleff at points, which is good, but not like unbelievably good. Wesley and Fancy, I don't know. I feel like this game favors more of what they're going to do. I think Cleff is ultimately going to struggle at this point in the tournament, which is why I pick Wesley to get to the final. The reason why I think it's going to be a struggle at this point in the tournament is I just think the way Clef plays, it is hard to play, but I just think he's going to struggle to get all through that. I think he's going to run out of steam in that final four, and the reason why is because if he's in Falcons or Colts, which he said on the Needed podcast he's going to be, I think that favors Wesley. I think Clef's because the weakness of Falcons and Colts is switch stick, and Wesley has a really good switch stick, which is why I think did Vilas have a great switch stick? I'm not sure. I don't think so. Fancy has a really good switch stick, and Clef beat the crap out of it. But could that have just been? Why did that happen? I'm not sure. I have to really look at it. watching the film, I didn't feel like Fancy's defense was bad. When I watched that game back, I feel like Fancy's offense was bad. And I don't. Cleff was doing stuff that nobody had seen at Zero Chill with them. Well, not necessarily nobody see, but really hadn't seen on the main stage. The manually bumping on the tight end, which was against Eagles, which Wesley might be in. I'm not sure. Wesley was running Eagles. I'm not sure if he still is. It's a hard game to pick. This one's a hard game to pick, but I feel like Wesley. I feel like Wesley, and I actually feel like because of defense. I feel like Wesley. I feel like Wesley has the edge in that game because of defense. Now David T and Kiv, this one is so hard to pick. Um, this could very easily be John Beast and Kiv. This one's hard to pick. Could very easily be John Beast versus Kiv. Could very easily be John Beast versus Abram. I have to give the edge to Kiv. I kind of have to give the edge to Kiv. But Kiv has not made a final. When's the last time Kiv made a final? Madden 18? Trying to remember if he'd made one, if he's made one ever since then. It's hard to pick Kiv. It's hard to pick, but it's hard to pick David T. If this is John Beast, it's a little easier. I could put John here. So if John Beast wins this, I think John Beast versus Wesley final. This matchup specifically is hard to pick because David T has had these kind of matchups. He actually played Kiv earlier this year, and Kiv beat him. It was a close game, but Kiv ended up edging him out into half scenario, stuff like that. That's what really makes me want to pick Kiv. It really comes down to who do I think is better at this game. And because I haven't seen David play, and I don't think I've seen David T play for at least 45 days, I kind of have to pick Kiv here. Yeah, I kind of have to pick Kiv. Sadly, I don't want to. But I got Kiv in a final. It Yeah, and this could easily this is one of those games that could just go either way. This could easily be Abram John Beast, Abram David T. Like this could do. I think this is Dave. I think David wins this one. I definitely think he wins that one. I think it's a crazy game, but I think David wins that game somehow. Wesley versus Kid for the Madden Bowl championship, and I think Wesley wins. Yeah, I think Wesley wins, and Kiv is the but it's gonna be a yeah. I have to pick Wesley. I feel like I have to. Yeah, I feel like I have to pick Wesley in that game. Really, whether David T or Kiv win, I was gonna pick. I think Wesley wins the Madden Bowl. I think Wesley wins the Madden Bowl. I think the winner of Fancy Wesley wins the Madden Bowl. To be honest, if Fancy wins that, I think Fancy wins. But I think the winner of Fancy Wesley wins the Madden Bowl. That is my prediction. We will have film rooms, all of that kind of content coming up, preparing for Madden Bowl, January 21st, January 22nd, and January 29th. So, going to be a really cool event. Really, really, really excited for it. And this is my prediction. I'm predicting that Wesley wins the Madden 25 Madden Bowl.